meeting is being recorded.
Yes, it is. Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday. It's a big day here in the US. I don't know if you've heard, but tonight Rihanna is making her big debut after a long time in some sort of televised TV special. So I'm really excited to check that out. I'm excited for the two presentations we have today, starting with this morning/afternoon, depending on where you are, comm session. I'll give folks just another couple of minutes to jump in the room. Meanwhile, on the screen. Yeah, as you're joining us, if you want to drop your name in the chat, maybe share your pronouns, what your slow food connection is, and then just to kind of get us, conversing in the chat, what's your most successful way to communicate with your chapter network? I've got so many techniques and tools these days. What's working for you? What's not working for you? So yeah, go ahead and share that in the chat. We'll get started in just like 2 minutes. Yes, Zoom. We're just chatting about how critically important Zoom has become to connect with our chapter boards, connect with each other through the Slow Food Network. Totally agree. Hey, Jody. Yeah, Instagram, hugely successful tool. Really a nice visual channel for the work that we're doing with people, with food, in gardens and farms. Absolutely. Okay, Kat, absolutely. I have noticed you all use Discord. I'm really curious about that, and Twitch to presumably manage your board meetings. So way to go out there and bring in new tools in the suite. Very cool. All right, I'm just gonna go ahead and pause the music because we've got a pretty packed 90 minutes. WhatsApp useful? Yes, 100%. Like if you're trying to get communication across your team, now it has different channels that you can create in your community for WhatsApp. Very cool. Glad to hear that. Excellent. So yeah, let's get started. For folks who don't know me, I think most of you do. I'm Brian Solom. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the communications director for Slow Food USA. I'm based on the homelands of the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations here in Chicago. I'm really excited to connect with you about something I'm passionate about, which is nonprofit marketing and communications. Just to let you know what's going to happen in today's session, we've got 90 minutes together. We kind of have 4 different parts of our session today. So we're going to kick things off by hearing from some of your Slow Food chapter peers in a panel discussion hosted by my colleague, Micaiah Josephson. We're then going to jump into a little bit of strategy, talking about like what are some tools that could be helpful to you for setting your comms plan for 2023. Then we're going to give our bodies a little break, maybe take a stretch, do whatever you need for 5 minutes. And then we're going to round it out with a Slow Food brand book rollout for 20 minutes. Our friends at the International Office have debuted some tools that might be helpful for us. And then finally, we're going to round things out with the Q&A at the end. Basically, the floor is open. Anyone's able to engage, and we're just able to share some tips and tricks. So, all right, let's do this thing. I am going to pass the baton off to Micaiah Josephson, our communications coordinator for Slow Food USA, who's going to facilitate a panel discussion of some of our comms and marketing leaders at our Slow Food chapters. And just so you can see everyone really brightly and clearly, I'm going to stop sharing my screen too and kick it over to Micaiah.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Happy Sunday. I'm really happy to be here and to be facilitating this panel discussion. My name is Micaiah, and I am born and raised in Southern California, but I'm currently in Sweden. So that's where I am. I'm in a really different time zone, but I'm glad I was able to make it today. So today we have Amy, Lisa, Jim, and Chelsea joining us for the panel discussion. And I'm going to just start off with questions and introductions. All right, so I would like for each of you to please introduce yourself and your connection to your chapter and the comms and marketing realm. Let's start with Lisa.
Hi, everybody. I am Lisa Rourke. I am with Slow Food DFW down here in beautiful Dallas, Texas. And I've been with Slow Food for almost 2 years now and doing the social media for our chapter. So I'm really excited to be here and to hear from everybody and speak with everybody.
All right, Chelsea.
Hi, everyone. I am with Slow Food Phoenix. I just started this year as our communications chair. I'm originally from Southern California, which is where I'm at currently for the weekend. I escaped the craziness of the golf tournament and Super Bowl for the weekend. My experience is in everything from policy systems and environmental change for food systems. But as far as marketing and communications, everything from professional sports, performing arts, Broadway musicals. When I moved to Phoenix, I worked for a local blog. So marketing anything and everything. And I feel like food is the biggest connector to everyone because we all eat, we all enjoy food. And so I just kind of keep getting pulled back into this wonderful work.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll have Jim and then Amy.
I'm Jim Brett. I live in a place called Paonia, Colorado. It's on the western slope of Colorado, west of Aspen, actually. And we live in a valley that was considered by one of the former Colorado governors of slow food as ground zero of all things slow food. So we're very lucky where we are. And I've been background has been pretty much in software engineering, and I do a lot of work for a number of nonprofits around here. So I do websites and newsletters pretty much for about 5, 6, 7 different organizations. So that's kind of what I do.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Fagel. I am currently the president of Slow Food Lake Tahoe. We are located in Truckee, California, which is just northwest of Lake Tahoe, little small ski town. I started volunteering for our local chapter here in 2016. And in 2018, I became a board member. I was brought on to run the social media. That soon blossomed into a role of marketing director and events. And I got a lot of experience on what works and what doesn't, running those events and doing the social media.
Okay, great. Thank you all for introducing yourselves. We're going to move on to our second question, but technically our first. It's going to be describe your digital channels when it comes to chapter communications. What's working best and what's giving you trouble? Let's start with Jim.
Okay, so in our area here, we use Facebook a lot and Instagram. Don't use Twitter. It's almost useless to have a Twitter account around here because Facebook seems to be the de facto mechanism to get word out, to interact and all that. And Instagram is growing as well. So those are the 2 top platforms. And other than physical posters that people post all over the place, those 2 are the main avenues that we use, or two platforms that we use to get the word out. And being in a rural area, I don't think anybody can really handle much more than that anyway. So we're doing fine with that. But then, dealing with Facebook and social media, you do have the misinformation and all that kind of stuff, but people just tend to just pass by that and glean, just glean for the information that makes sense to them. And so those are the two platforms that we use.
Thanks for sharing, Jim. Let's move on to Lisa and then Chelsea.
We use Facebook and Instagram. Instagram is much more successful. And I find that with the algorithms of Instagram, if you have a picture of a human, especially of a face, you get a lot more hits than you would if you just have like a marketing image or something like that. It also works better to just have one picture rather than to have a group of them, like 4 at one time, because that kind of messes with the algorithm too, or several that you have to kind of flip through. So whenever we have an event, we post it as a picture of a person, and then we have link in bio, and then we put the event link into the bio for Eventbrite. We get a lot more hits on Instagram. Facebook, I will share stories and I'll share things of our partners like Oak Cliff Veggie Project and anyone who has won the Snail of Approval Award. We always promote them on our channels. But Facebook mainly will get about 5 hits from that. Instagram is a lot richer. I've attempted a TikTok, but I'm not great with TikTok yet. So I'm trying to see what I can do with that and make something cool out of it. I don't know.
So for Phoenix, we're in a rebuilding phase. We'll be meeting with our board members in March to really identify our new goals. And so because of that, I've kind of taken a step back from our social media because I want to make sure that it's what our region really wants to promote and have our voice. Because for the last few months, it was really my voice and what I felt should be posted, and I just didn't like the feeling of that. We are using Facebook, and that is only because I find that our partners are responding there, and that's where they're making their comments and likes and everything. So I don't know that it's really led by us, but really by the partners that are engaging. And I will say that we only have a handful of partners that do continue to engage, and that is a struggle. And also getting my goal is to get our board members really chatting, because I've tried to explain that if one person makes a comment and gives their opinion, then that's really the catalyst for hopefully others too. So hopefully we can identify the analytics of our members and really see if Facebook is the way to go, or if we should go back to just a email marketing newsletter.
Thank you for sharing. And finally, Amy.
We find the most, we get the most reactions actually with our monthly email newsletter. We can send one out and we can immediately see people signing up for classes or making a donation, depending on what we're asking for. Our social media, we use Facebook and Instagram, and with those channels, our goal is to drive people to our website. So with Instagram, we use Linktree, and that is a successful way that we found to do that. We do find more interaction on Facebook. I think that's just because there's more ways to share on Facebook. However, with social media in general, because we are all volunteers, our posts on there tend to ebb and flow. So it's not as consistent as we would always like it to be, but when we do use it, it does work pretty well. And then also being in a small town, we have one local radio station, so we actually do use radio as well.
Wow. I didn't realize that radio was one of the platforms that any chapter used. So that's really cool.
Can I do a quick follow-up from Lisa in terms of the Instagram? I found that doing reels,
Yes.
video is like all of a sudden there's been such an output, so many likes. It was just dumbfounding to realize how potent that can be.
Yes.
And I forgot that the biggest thing that we do here is newsletters. I do a newsletter every Wednesday, And we may be able to discuss further what I do with that, but I just, newsletters are, the weekly newsletter that we do is very important.
I really agree. I think newsletters and any type of email marketing is really powerful. So I think that's a great tool for any chapter to use. So thanks for sharing that. All right, so I think we're going to move on to another question. And this question will be, what food justice / social feeds do you find most influential on your life and work? Let's hear from Chelsea first.
So with my previous work here in San Diego, I was connected to Slow Food, but not super involved. And so in this work, I've actually found a lot of influence through the Slow Food channels. And they're the ones that I've really started to follow to understand branding and really get that language down. So again, it's not coming from things that people say in our meetings, or again, from me, that it's really coming from that Slow Food thought process. And then otherwise, I'm a mom of 3. And so I'm in the thick of wanting to know fast, quick, easy, healthy meals. And that's been challenging to find. So if anyone has any suggestions on who to follow, please let me know. They seem to always contain the stuff that I don't want to feed my kids. So that's really where my influence is right now.
Okay. And Lisa, do you have anything to add?
So what I do for work is I work with a company called Term Compost, and here in Dallas, and it's a community composter that's female owned and operated. And as the hiring manager, I hire through a staffing agency called Cornbread Hustle that hires previously incarcerated individuals. So I'm very involved and like to learn about the Innocence Project. Also because we're on the food waste end of the cycle. I like to learn about Citizens Climate Lobby and anything about plastic, anything that we can possibly keep out of our composting stream. And I'll hook you up, Chelsea. I've got a lot of blogs I can help you out with, but ours is more on the environmental justice and the food justice part. I mentioned earlier, Oak Cliff Veggie Project is one that we use that is a partner. Food Not Bombs is another one, and Feed the Revolution. So we have a lot of great organizations here in Dallas that I follow to see what they're doing and how we can be effective too locally.
Very interesting. All right. Thank you for sharing. Time is going by pretty quickly, so I am going to move on to the next question, but we will start with Amy and then Jim for the next question. And the question is, which social media platform receives the most attention in your Slow Food region?
For us, it's Facebook. Like I said before, it's because I think there's a larger variety of ways to interact on the platform, whether it's by simply putting a post on your page, or you can share it to a group, tag an individual, tag a business. But that also takes the most time. Instagram also receives a lot of interaction when it comes to likes and comments, but we feel that that reaches fewer people. So I do try to spend more time using Facebook, creating a single post and then sharing that multiple different ways in order to make the most impact.
Okay, thank you. Jim?
Okay, yes, Facebook is also important. Instagram, there's a lot of individual, obviously accounts, very few business accounts, if you will, that we follow, or interact with. But with Facebook around here, there are so many different message boards. And it seems like every little town in our area has a message board. And so for us, it's interesting to, whenever I do post out, send out a newsletter, I use MailChimp and connect it to my account. And it's immediately posted on our Slow Food Western Slope page. And then what I do is just copy the content that's posted on that page and just slam it on all other different message boards that people frequent in our area, and that gets a lot of traffic and a lot of responses from that. So joining message boards here is important to get the word out.
Thank you. And I am going to ask two people this question. It is, what questions/comments do you see frequently in your threads? Let's hear from Lisa and then Amy.
A lot of times I hear more information regarding our events is required. And so it's great to keep me on my toes and realize how much specific information I need to include in every event posting. I also will get requests for certain events to be held at with certain partners. And I really, really thrive on that because it's a great idea that always comes across.
We see a lot of people asking us for references for local businesses or how to do something. Our chapter is very garden focused. So we do a lot of planting and growing, and we also have a compost program in our area. So we get a lot of questions around that, how to grow, what to grow. And aside from comments and questions, we get a lot of people sharing. So we do try to encourage people to share that post to their friends or to their groups and message boards.
All right. And for Jim and Chelsea, I would love for you to answer, what type of posts generate the most traction in your region? We'll start with Jim.
Since we're in a agricultural paradise, going to I don't know, anything food related, crops related, farms, wineries that we have around here. I find doing a good shot, if you will. I'm an amateur photographer, so I get a little antsy once in a while when people post stuff. But and also I find what Lisa mentioned earlier about people shots being important. That's true as well. But in our area, having people plus food, you know, like the background of, that you see of my screen here, is very important. And we get a lot of reaction from that. If we just post a logo of an organization, that hardly, you know, that just flies by. No one pays attention to it. But it's something, I hate to say this, eye candy is very important to use and also to promote either events or any other situation that needs attention. So having good quality imagery is important.
So we're really working for Phoenix to be the connector of all things food, social justice, everything that Slow Food stands for, because people do come to us similarly to find those connections. I put together a Thankful For campaign around Thanksgiving, and I pulled different organizations, anything food related, kind of what would fall under the snail of approval concept for our community from our different board members. And so we were able to post and tag different businesses, and it really worked with Thanksgiving because we were able to highlight places to get, you know, all of your ingredients basically is what it culminated to. And then a few other gift options, honeys and things like that. So that the real actual traction that people have action based, what am I trying to say? The things that people can actually identify with and do in action really seem to have traction in our community. When we just post, hey, this is happening, or here's a good idea, it just doesn't seem to get any traction. People really want that action.
All right, thank you for sharing. For time's sake, I think I'm just going to ask one more question, and I would love to hear from all of you. The question is, what part of the Slow Food story does your network really connect with? Let's start with Lisa.
Our area really likes the land acknowledgements. So the area that we occupy right now here in Dallas is the Tawakoni area. So we like to talk about that, and it really does seem to resonate with people in our area.
Thank you. All right, Jim.
I think taking the good, clean, fair aspect of it, just because of what we have available around here, it's the good and clean aspect of it. We do have the highest percentage of organic producers in the state of Colorado in our area. And so people appreciate knowing where the food comes from. And in our events, we always highlight local producers, and that gets people stoked up, I think. And for us personally, for our chapter, we always, when we have events, we never ask for donations, because we always want to compensate the producers and their workers for everything. And I think we set the precedent there for other organizations not to ask for donations from producers. So that's very critical, and people respond to that.
All right, we're going to end this question with Amy, and then I would like for Chelsea to share any thoughts relating to anything we've talked about today, and then we will close the discussion.
So in our chapter, we're a quickly growing small town. So I think our chapter connects most with the ability to bring people together in smaller groups around the enjoyment of food, and still maintaining that small town feel. We do a lot of this through teaching skills that are becoming less common as our population grows.
So speaking of fast growing, Phoenix is growing so quickly. And so because of that, we have an opportunity to work with all different types of people, all different types of regions, but at the same time, that does become very overwhelming. So we're really working to analyze, like I said earlier, the analytics of our membership and identify what people want. We have a wonderful group of board members who come from a very diverse background, but as the communications person, I think it's really important that I'm not just voicing, again, what we say in our board meetings, but what is really happening in the community. So it's a little bit daunting right now to have that, I guess, control of really where we're going to take the chapter, but really taking the time to hopefully pull on our community and pull on those members to see what they want. We used to do a lot of work because we housed a really successful nonprofit called Blue Watermelon, and they're now the lead in school nutrition and gardening for Phoenix. So we really have a heavy focus on that. So we're really trying to break away and see what other advocacy programs and education we can bring to the table.
Well, thank you for sharing, Chelsea. And I want to thank all of you for being a part of our communicators panel. So thank you, Jim, Lisa, Amy, and Chelsea. It's been really interesting to hear your responses. And now we're going to move on to the next section of the itinerary, or the plan for today. And Brian will be doing that. So yeah, thank you again.
Thank
I
you,
just
Makai.
wanted to, before we shift it over to Brian, if it's okay, there was one question from Fernando in the chat that asked, how often and how do you provide a forum for your communities at large to give feedback? So I'm not sure, Fernando, if that was directed at any one person on the panel in particular, but if anyone wanted to chime in, if you have an answer kind of off the top of your head of how you provide or allow communities to provide feedback, feel free.
I can speak to that. As dangerous as it might be, we invite them to board meetings. So if we have anybody who has given us a response via Instagram or Facebook, or even someone who has attended one of our events and wants to speak to us about something, we invite them to the board meetings, and they just, you know, we write it into the agenda that they have an open forum for themselves.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Any other thoughts on that space, or if not, we can transition over to Brian as well.
We've also invited people to our board meetings who wanted to propose a project, and that's been very successful. It also is a good way to bring in new volunteers who are willing and ready to start on a project. We also obviously try to keep our contact information on our website, and we do check our emails and our voicemails and our social media messages as often as we can, if anything comes through there.
Sweet.
While you all are on the stage still, I did see another question about public radio and whether any of you have leveraged your local public radio station to promote an event or to pitch a story idea.
Yeah, we've used, like Amy was saying before, we do have a public radio here, and we've used what they call underwriting a message as an announcement. So that's a pretty good tool. And we got pretty good, some of our events, we asked how you found out about our event, and hearing it on the radio was one of the responses. So that is a valuable tool. And you also got to gauge in terms of the cost and the return. So depending on the type of event you're having, using public radio is certainly a very viable avenue.
Very cool. Okay, well, yeah, again, to echo Micaiah, thank you so much for being here on the stage and sharing your wisdom. We really appreciate you and all the work that you're doing to support your chapters and to extend the Slow Food brand and the Slow Food story. So kudos to you all. Yes. Great. Okay, well, we're going to transition a little bit now to diving in to think about a couple of ways that you could consider planning some communications efforts for 2023. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. Some of these things may be very familiar to you and things that you're already doing as a chapter or as an individual in the work that you do as a marketer or communicator. But just for the sake of sharing, I wanted to offer a couple of tools that might be helpful to you in thinking through getting some storytelling and comms and marketing strategy in play for the new year. So one thing that I have found to be very helpful in a variety of positions that I've held over the years as a nonprofit communications leader is content buckets. So in my mind, what a content bucket is a specific category of stories and messaging and content that you're really focusing on getting across to your channels throughout a given period of time. So when I joined Slow Food USA back in June of 2021, I worked with the two communications coordinators that we had back then to really take a look at the content that was performing well for us through our channels, the content that we were really called to create based on our mission and vision. And over a couple of months, we really refined what emerged as 3 different content buckets for Slow Food USA. First and foremost, chapter stories. We really want to make sure that our chapters are at the center of our social media channels, our email newsletter, and any PR efforts that we're leveraging to pitch stories to reporters. So that is something that we prioritize. We publish at least 12 chapter stories per year. That's really Micaiah's lead project, is to connect with chapters, understand what they're doing, and really cover the happenings that are happening in different regions. Second is Black, Indigenous, and people of color-led foodways. We know how important it is to make sure that stories that have been intentionally withheld or otherwise not given ample platforms to be heard and experienced. That's part of our responsibility at Slow Food USA, we're trying to advance good, clean, and fair food for all. We're trying to understand historical and traditional foodways and return to those ways because we know that they are better for the climate, they're better for people, and they're better for communities. And so we're doing our best to make sure that folks and histories and current lived experiences of BIPOC folks are centered in the blog posts and in the Slow Food Live events that we produce. And finally, our third content bucket is fascinating food. We have this Arc of Taste program at Slow Food USA, really at Slow Food International, that highlights different interesting foods that are rare, endangered, and need to be protected and honored. And so we find that our audiences really love to learn about these foods. And so we do our part to kind of promote and advance those narratives of producers, of rare foods, of regional foods. Just to kind of extend this knowledge and extend our understanding of some of the hidden food histories here in the US in particular, but also with the global landscape. So I just shared our content buckets. I think it would be helpful for each of you who are leading your comms efforts to think about what your chapter's content buckets are. What are the focuses that you want to take on in 2023 when it comes to determining what you're going to share in your Instagram stories, for example, or what you're going to focus on in your monthly or your weekly newsletter? I'm curious, just to open the mic, does anyone currently have content buckets that they're focusing on? Maybe you call it something different, or maybe you haven't really isolated the terminology, but is this something that is already kind of happening in your chapter? You can feel free to just jump off mute or drop something in the chat. Well, cool. So if you feel moved later on to share any insights, please feel free and just come off mute or do whatever feels comfortable to you. Cool. So another suggestion that I have for all of you, or just to plant an idea based on your capacity, based on your interest, based on your focuses for 2023, think about really doubling down on being a platform for sharing stories in your region. For Slow Food USA, storytelling is really important. We have a pretty tight team for a national nonprofit between myself and Micaiah. And yet at the same time, doing the work of amplifying voices and making sure that we're learning from people and sharing those learnings through our channels is critically important. In 2022, Slow Food USA amplified 95 different voices across the Slow Food universe through our blog and through our Slow Food Live channels. That means that we either interviewed or created space for sharing quotes, stories, and ideas from different people across the network. And so we really encourage you to kind of, do that work if that inspires you. If you have someone on your team who is really energized and engaged around storytelling, think about, amplifying maybe 4 different people's experiences in your region this year. I know that some chapters are doing this work already, but maybe if this is something that is new to you, or you've kind of wanted to do something like this, but just haven't done it, maybe this is the year to do so. I'd also point out a tool that several folks on the Slow Food USA team created last year called the Cultural Exchange Framework for Storytellers. Just to preview this a little bit, it's a multi-part kind of process guide, set of questions, set of ideas for really ensuring that your storytelling efforts, and really this extends beyond just storytelling, but really your community connection efforts are rooted in cultural exchange, especially when you're connecting with people who don't share a lot of points of lived experience with you. So there are many sections in this resource. I'll share the link in the chat. But overall, one thing that might be helpful for active storytellers in the room or people who want to try this for the first time, there are a couple of prompts in the skills section around asking some tough questions of yourself and of your process. So something that, some things to consider are, is this my story to tell? And if not, what are some strategies I can take to make sure someone in my community's experience is being heard by more than just me? Especially thinking about the dynamics of power and how that comes up in storytelling. We want to make sure that storytelling is rooted in relationships, and that storytelling is, maybe like a start of a conversation or relationship and not the end. We're not reporters here. We're not going in to like get the story, get out of the scene, get it published, and then move on to the next thing. We're thinking of storytelling as like a relationship builder. Also, if this is something that you don't have a lot of experience with, we have a roadmap to how to use some better practices for publishing and producing a story. This gets pretty granular because we know that, some folks have never done this before, but want to try it. And so some of these tips and tricks might be helpful. Just thinking about like creating a food waste asset map in your community to help brainstorm stories, thinking about what it looks like to do some outreach and kind of like warm someone up to the idea of letting their voice be heard. Thinking about, how to have that first conversation to kind of like warm someone up to the idea of being the center of attention on your blog or in your newsletter or in a video, that you publish to Facebook Live or IG Live. Then some things to consider after, like before you publish and then after you publish. So definitely encourage you to check this resource out. Let us know if you have any ideas or questions about it. We're always looking to grow and improve the tools that we produce for our Slow Food Network. So yeah, let us know what you think. And if you have had any story producing experiences in the last year, I'd love to hear about them in the chat, or you can raise your hand or come off mute. Again, storytelling is something that's such a critical part of what Slow Food USA does, and we'd love to see that happening at the chapter level as well. So number 3 is mapping your content. I'm curious if folks want to use an emoji in the chat. Do you have a way that you're kind of like tracking when you're going to publish content to maybe your social feeds or to your email newsletter? Or if you do have any other mediums that you use to engage with people? If you do, just like put a little emoji. You can click on a reaction in the bottom part of the Zoom screen. Oh yeah, Stephanie, that's a great point to add the cultural exchange guide to the leader resources. 100%. Yeah, we'll get that cooking after the session. Yeah. Cool. Well, I'm not seeing any emojis in the chat. Maybe that's something someone else on your team is doing. But something I would suggest to make it easy to like not feel overwhelmed by this constant need to like feed and fuel these like social media channels that are calling for our attention all the time is to just make a simple content calendar. So I went ahead and created a template for folks to use. So for Slow Food USA, we use Airtable, which is a really fun, easy, and like mostly free tool to do, frankly, a lot of things for Slow Food USA to organize our projects. One of the main ways that I use it alongside Micaiah is to coordinate all of our content on a regular basis. So just to like give you a quick tour of the tool that we're using literally every day. We have content buckets for email, for blog, for social, and for Slow Food Live. And we're constantly updating this just to be on the same page about what content we're going to produce for our social channels, when we want to make sure it's getting published, what the status of it might be. And then if we dive into an even more granular level for each of these items, Airtable lets you actually like add a bunch of updates to the tool in and of itself. So Micaiah and I are just like in these records, maybe, we're going to assign someone to be the producer of a piece of content. Maybe there's some notes like this content is really only for Facebook and LinkedIn, not so much for IG. Share a URL in there, and then our copy, like what is the text that we want to accompany our link or our image. We can also attach our audiences if we. Oh, this needs to be updated, but I updated for the template that I'm about to walk you through. Maybe there's some photos that you can upload immediately to this section. And then, yeah, where is it going to be published? Is it social, email, blog? So this is something that just kind of helps you create a consistent and clear and like easy to be engaged with plan for plugging content into your newsletter and into your social media channels. I love some of the suggestions that I'm seeing over here. Trello, awesome tool. I've used it before, love it. Oh, the link is broken, LOL. Sorry about that. Yeah, did that, hold on, let's see if that works. Oh yeah, okay, so did the link that Dion share work for folks to get that template?
There is a question from Jody asking, what do you mean by mostly free?
Yeah, so I just checked this out yesterday. So I think Airtable is free for up to 5 users. And you get most of the functionality for up to 5 users. And frankly, you can also just like I'll log into Airtable through one email address, and that's okay too, because you know, we're we're doing our best out here with the resources we have. So yeah, I would say check it out. So if you click on that link, what should pop up is this. Oh, it's not gonna let me do it. Hold on. I'm just gonna share a different screen real quick. I think this is what it should look like for you, is a content calendar template. What you can do for your Slow Food channel is you can just click on copy base, and that'll go ahead and create the instance in your particular Airtable account. You may have to set it up by like entering your Google credentials or entering an email and password, but I would definitely recommend folks take a look at this and consider implementing this in 2023 as a way of just keeping, you know, maybe you and one other person on your team on board to make sure that your social channels and your email newsletter are consistently engaged with. And it's super easy just to like, so let's say you want to create a social post, just expand this record here and then just complete. Oh, this because this is on view only. Here, let me just copy this base, add base. And this is exactly what it's going to look like when you do it too. You can go to all content by platform and then dive in here, create a post. This is a post. Maybe we'll share that on Tuesday, because you know that Tuesdays are good days for performance across your social channels. We're gonna just draft this right here. I'm gonna produce it, so I'm gonna assign this to myself. You can put a note in there. Maybe you're sharing a link to an event registration. And then you're gonna build out some copy, you know, some really succinct text to promote that event. And then you go in here and select your audience. Maybe you want it on Facebook, you want it on Twitter, you don't want it on TikTok because maybe you don't have a TikTok channel. Yeah, I'm an incognito because I wanted to use it outside of my like Slow Food USA account, so you could all see what it looks like when you're doing this on your own. Maybe drop a photo in there, and then you're all set. You just press X, and then that post is right there, and you can all go in and jump in there and do some project management. So I'm always around. Makaya's always around. If you want to implement this and you want someone just to kind of walk you through the process. I'm just going to take a quick pause and check the chat because I see a lot of awesome activity happening over there. Glad that Dion's link is working. Sorry about the redirect not working. Yeah, Chelsea talking about encouraging the board to be more active with their members. Board member highlights. This is a great technique to just start generating some content in your chapter. You've got the people right there. It's a pretty low lift to make or ask someone, volunteer someone, if you will, to like fill out a brief survey, share a photo, and then that's great content to share across pretty much any of your email and social channels. Love that. That's great. Yes, Joe, TechSoup. I'm so glad you shared that yesterday and today as well. You all have an EIN, an employee, an EIN. I forget what the abbreviation is. You can use TechSoup to get really discounted software to help you with your marketing and communications tools. So check that link out. If you have questions on how to engage with it, definitely let us know. Okay, so the last thing that I wanted to share, thank you. Thanks, Dion, or whoever posted that. The last thing I want to share before we take a little break is share screen. And I'll share this presentation with everybody too. is thinking about setting a communications and marketing related goal for 2023. So I think many of us are probably familiar with the concept of SMART goals, which are goals that are specific, measurable, as in they have some sort of like key performance indicator or metric that you're tracking, attainable, as in like, yeah, this is realistic within a certain time frame, relevant, as in this is going to really advance our mission and help us get closer to our vision. And finally, time bound, which is like this, I am going to commit to doing this within a specific period of time. So that's all great. SMART goals, awesome. But let's also think about making them SMART goals for, and this goes for marketing and comms efforts, but also across your entire Slow Food chapter. What can we do to make sure these goals are inclusive, as in building a space where we are powering up people and making a safe, brave, and embracing space for people of all lived experiences and all dimensions of diversity. And what can we do to make our goals equitable as well in terms of advancing or kind of reversing and building a better future that recognizes and builds beyond some historical, systemic oppressions and differences that are built into our systems. So I'm not going to walk through creating a SMART goal. I will share a link with you in the chat to a goal that that Micaiah and I developed for Slow Food USA, which is to amplify 30 voices of Black and Indigenous people and other people of color in 2023 to illustrate food justice, history, and liberation among communities of color. We designed this to be a SMART goal, and we didn't actually use this worksheet, but I kind of like distilled the conversation that Micaiah and I had in here to kind of decide that was something we wanted to commit to in 2023. Hopefully you can access this link that I just dropped in the chat. But yeah, what is a SMART goal that you want to set for your chapter this year, particularly around marketing and communications, so that you are that food justice storyteller in your community, so that you are advancing your educational efforts, your events, your programs. So many of you have awesome programs. What's a goal that you might want to set? So I just threw a lot at you, which means maybe it's a good time for us to take a pause, get some water, process some things, maybe come back with a question or two. And then when we come back from our break, we're going to dive into exploring the Slow Food International brand book and some things that might be helpful for you in conveying the visual brand of Slow Food. And then we're just going to open it up so that these questions that are beautifully populating in the chat can come onto main, and we can all talk about them face to face. How does that sound? Cool. All right, so I'm gonna play some music. I'm going to encourage us all to take a little get some more coffee if that is something you need, some water, stretch. Yeah, just like take a break, and we'll come back at 2 minutes before the new hour. Everybody, it is 2 minutes till. Feel free to come back to the room. Hopefully you got a little stretch. I got a little more coffee because it's Sunday. It's nice to have coffee at 11:58 in the morning. Great. Before we jump back into some learning and resource sharing, I'm just curious if anything's come up for anyone since we've started. Any questions, ideas? Yeah.
I forgot to mention, in terms of the newsletters that we do, since we do a weekly newsletter in like again, in a rural area, what I tend to do is promote other organization events, the ones that we partner with, events that feature local produce and all that, so that basically my newsletter becomes like a new form of town crier, if you will, to get the word out that it's not just us that have events or have some news, is that there's so many different organizations that have in our valley that have events or that need promoting and that are related to our philosophy of good, clean, and fair, basically. So it's a mechanism to partner and also spread the word. So it's not specifically a slow food event per se. It's just get people out there and making them know that there are other good organizations out there doing good things. So I think that's pretty critical, and not just think of slow food itself, but also take advantage of what's in your area, promote them, and you build these relationships that really work out in the end.
100%. Yeah, I mean, Slow Food has a 35-year-old, really well-recognized brand. And sometimes our role is actually to signal boost other organizations' work that is in alignment with what we do. And yeah, sometimes we are that town crier, like you mentioned. We can share updates from across our networks, regionally or nationally or internationally. So thanks for sharing, Jim.
There is a question. Got in the chat from Jody to Jim, is how much time does it take you to manage the newsletter weekly?
Well, that depends. Sometimes there's information there that's repetitive or something that's been in previous newsletters. It's just that my approach is that someone's going to read it the first time. And then anything that's happening during the week, I put it out on Wednesday. So on Tuesday, I get everything together. I think the longest time is trying to find a recipe. I always put a recipe at the end of the newsletter just to get people to scroll down and maybe see something they haven't seen before and to get at that recipe. So in terms of time, it varies. But since I have a template, if you will, it's not that bad. It's about an hour or two or something like that, just to get everything in order. And of course, that's one of many newsletters I do throughout in this valley anyway. So it's just one of those things that I do. So it's not that hard. And having I use MailChimp, and it's free. I don't have I have about 770 subscribers. So it's free at this point. I think they may be changing. So I reuse the previous week's newsletter, modify it, delete stuff that's old or past or whatever, and just move on. So it's a relatively simple process. Starting up, of course, it takes more time, but once you get everything underway, it's relatively easy and not much time.
I'm curious if anyone in the room is thinking about starting a newsletter this year. I know many of you have great newsletters that I love to read, whether it's monthly or quarterly, but anyone in the room really excited to try this out this year?
I'm excited to enhance ours. Our secretary recently had a baby, so she has been a little MIA, which is totally understandable. So I think our newsletters have been few and far between in the last 9 months or so. So we're really excited to get it back up and running. And I love the idea of putting a recipe at the end. That is so cool. So definitely going to take that idea.
Yeah, I mean, just like thinking about content buckets, right? You want to have a good diversity of content types and structures, and that's true for newsletters as it's true for your social channels. People, gravitate toward different things, and also the algorithms favor a healthy balance of images, long form, links, videos, although videos seem to be declining in algorithmic popularity. So yeah, love that. Love to hear it. Cool. Well, I'm going to keep moving, and we're just going to touch base on the Slow Food Brand Book, and then we'll open it back up for more conversation. So yeah, let me share the old screen. And real quick, does anyone in the room have experience with the brand book? Have you worked with a brand book before, or maybe even worked with the Slow Food Brand Book?
I reference it a lot already, especially for the colors.
I love to hear it. That's great. Yeah, it's color. It's something about colors and like the eye. Just noticing something being just slightly off is so interesting. Like you would never be able to describe it, and maybe you wouldn't even notice that like a differential in the color is like what you're noticing, but you're just like, something is different here, and it gives me pause. Or conversely, wow, there is a consistency to colors in the way that this brand conveys themselves. And yeah, it's interesting how it works. But yeah, for folks who are not familiar with a brand book, typically an organization or company or brand will have a set of guidelines that kind of dictates how you convey the visual aspects of your brand, as well as some of like the thematic and messaging aspects of your brand. For Slow Food USA, we have our This is Slow Food brand book, which I will share in the chat. But our friends at the international office have been working on their brand book for, I think, like 3 years now. I'm not joking. And they've finally started to release it. And so I wanted to bring it here to you today so that you all could see kind of what our friends in Bra, Italy are encouraging us to do when it comes to visual and thematic branding. So they created a cute little video that I'm going to share just to break up our content here, so it's not just me like yammering on at you all. So here we go.
Welcome to the Slow Food International Brand Book. If you're involved in slow food communications in any way, there is plenty of useful material here, from updated descriptions on who we are, to our mission, values, and brand personality, to the more technical guidelines around logos, colors, and typography. To help coordinate our global communication style, we've laid out various visual mood boards, as well as best practices around graphics, video, and photography. Confused with slow food terminology? Consult the glossary of terms. And as always, for any questions, suggestions, or support, contact identity@slowfood.it.
So that was our now former, unfortunately, colleague Nico from the Bra office, who's really leading this effort. Something I find helpful that we haven't really talked about yet today is thinking about your audience and being an audience-first communicator. In fact, yesterday, it came up in our EIJ session, thinking about the way that we give and receive information. And so oftentimes the most effective way to be a communicator or marketer is to really understand your audience. From the Slow Food International Office's perspective, and frankly, I agree with this for Slow Food USA and probably your chapters as well. Our audiences include citizens who care about food. They're often referred to as co-producers in foodways, right? Because we need consumers as much as we need producers. Thinking about our food producers as some of our primary audience members. Our network leaders, that means thinking about our boards as kind of like peer communicators. as well as volunteers within our chapters and community action teams. Staff, again, people who are doing the work on the ground, people who are doing the planning, and finally thinking about our donors and members. You all have folks who contribute time and talent and resources to your chapters, just as we do at Slow Food USA. And so through understanding our audiences, we can do some tailoring of messaging and information to specific people. For instance, not all of our 45,000 email recipients were promoted to the Leader Summit, because frankly, this is content and information that we want to keep exclusive to the folks who are doing this important work that you all are. This is just some helpful ways of thinking about how to cultivate your information for your audiences. One thing I love about the brand book, and I will tell you, we're just going to touch on like 4 components of it, but I love that the Slow Food International team created an elevator pitch for what the slow food movement is. And here in the US, it's a little bit different, but when you're introducing someone to the idea of slow food, I really love this very succinct way of walking through it. And they start with this very bold, slightly controversial question: can we change the world through food? We believe we can. And then they go on to talk about this being a global movement, putting that 160 country metric in there that really shows the magnitude of slow food. Talking about the 3 pillars, which are defending cultural and biological diversity, promoting education, and advocating for better food policies and systems. They touch on like the length of this movement, right? 35 years. People really, gravitate toward a movement that's been around for a long time. And then there's that really nice call to action at the end of like, would you join us? Will you come to this event? Will you become a board member? Will you make a financial donation or an in-kind donation? So something we can, if you ever want to do some workshopping and like practice this with me or with someone else in the room, it's helpful to like run through it a couple of times to feel really confident when someone's like, what's slow food? So yeah, check that out in the brand book. I also just want to underscore our primary logos. You all do a great job at this. Slow Food USA, making sure that the logo is not distorted, or that you're not swapping in different colors for the snail, or that you're not like flipping the logo or doing something goofy with it. This is the on the left here, this is the way that we should see the Slow Food USA logo across all materials and marketing. And then on the right, that's our standard slow food chapter template. I think many of you are using the same structure where we have the slow food at the top, and then we have your chapter name underneath that with that really big, bold snail sitting on top of it. Jody, I think, so there are a lot of ways to like enhance our brands, right? And I think that in many uses of a brand or a logo, if you will, you can have the website be near it. But I would say it's probably better to focus on simplicity and consistency and clarity when you think about your chapter's logo. So yeah, like Slow Food Boco or Slow Food Boulder is, like in many uses, I could see you putting your website underneath the logo, but like that official logo itself, probably best to keep it pretty simple, streamlined, consistent. Just to make sure it's clearly understood by your audiences, and that you really build up that resonance and that consistency. So people, when they see your logo, they're like, oh yeah, we know that this is Slow Food Boco, this is Slow Food St. Louis, this is Slow Food Dallas Fort Worth. And then let's get into the colors. So not much has changed here, although we have made 2 modifications to the primary colors. Yes, Jody, you have a unique situation. I totally get it. So yeah, definitely add that website when you can. Yeah, definitely leaning into this Pantone 485C, making sure that you're consistent with the red across the board. So for secondary colors, the International Office did update the green and the yellow. The yellow is new to us, very exciting. We're excited to bring that into future designs. We actually haven't really incorporated this at the USA level because they just released this brand book like a week and a half ago. So yeah, these secondary colors, feel free to experiment with them, use them in ways that you see fit. I also encourage you to like keep that red as like a through line through your designs, just because it really ties back to this 35-year-old brand, and the red is so like iconically slow food. Yeah, totally also agree. PNGs are the way to go. We stand a PNG. JPEGs are good for photos. They compress photos pretty well, but like when you have like a design that you make in like Illustrator or Canva, definitely lean toward PNG. 100% agree, Joe. Official typefaces. I think these have been pretty consistent over the years. Oswald is that like go-to header typeface. You see it in most of our Slow Food USA materials. You can use any weight of this. It's a free typeface available through Google. It's also on most design platforms. So that's kind of like your display font, if you will, for titles, headlines, subheads. Body text, Helvetica New is like my go-to. Crisp, clean, classic, modern, direct, very easy to read. Highly recommend that as your body text. Since Helvetica is technically owned by a type foundry, it's not available on every platform. Noto Sans is a great backup. It's a Google font. We use Noto Sans on our website, for example, because we'd have to pay like $1 bajillion to have Helvetica as our body text type, just the way our website is set up. The team did add Laura as like a new typeface, which is another Google font. This is it's a serif font, which I think kind of like harkens to the Slow Food brand, but doesn't use the exact typeface that you would see in the Slow Food logo. So feel free to use this as like an accent typeface. Yeah. Last thing I'll refer to you all is the style guide. So one thing that I'm really glad to see in the longer version of the Slow Food brand book, which I'm going to share the link to in the chat right now. They re-added their style guide to the brand book. This gives some a really great overview of some like kind of quirky slow food terminology, such as convivium or co-producer or presidium. I often find that we don't use these terms in the Slow Food USA network, and I'm okay with that. But if you ever have any questions about like slow food terminology, you can find it in this extended brand book. Some really helpful information here. I'd also say, like, in terms of a language guide or a brand book, the Food Justice Language Guide is also a great resource that we created alongside the cultural exchange for storytellers. Basically, this is touching on some of the most frequently used terms in food justice networks. It's really helping us make sure that we're powering up communities and concepts that are being referred to in our external communications. And so you'll find community descriptions in here. You'll find some like food descriptions in here. Definitely take a look at this and make sure that your copy and your messaging is consistent with some of these terms. I find especially the transition from the idea of like food deserts to food apartheids, which really underscores like the systemic intentionality behind creating food scarcity for certain communities. Is really helpful to kind of explain what we do and why we're here to do the work that we do. So thank you, Stephanie. Or yeah, yes, they are. Okay, thank you. That's great. And yeah, any questions about the brand book or the style guide, or how to like bring these to life? I mean, I think, you know, thinking about the events that you're going to be promoting and the content you'll be creating this year, really just making sure they're consistent with these colors and these typefaces and these pieces of messaging. At the end of the day, that's what we're asking for. So yeah. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And yeah, this is just like open swim. So I guess I'm just curious if anything's come up for you today, anything that surprised you, anything that enticed you, entertained you. Joe, why don't you kick it off?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Brian. Just wanted to show a couple things that I think are very useful. I picked this up, not the can, but the can cooler This is from Slow Food, North Louisiana. So the point is that this is something that, I mean, I've got like probably 20, not this one, but I've got 20 of these. These are very common. They're cheap. You can get these made out of hemp fiber and things like that. So you may want to look at something like that if you're going to go to some type of item. But here's Slow Food branded. I picked this up in Terra Madre in 2016, I believe it is, from Louisiana. So, and another thing that I picked up in 2010 is a chip clip bag. Okay. And these are everybody eats, chips and so forth. Not everybody eats the whole bag at once. So, these are useful. If you don't have a dozen of these in your kitchen, you may want to, and you can get these branded with your Slow Food, logo and things like that. These are maybe less than $1 a piece for small ones. I mean, you can use a clothespin or a binder clip and so forth, but everybody has these things in their kitchen, and you get them with magnets. That's another extra cost. I wouldn't recommend that, but just plastic ones, under $1 a piece. If you don't have a vendor for this stuff, let me know, because I use this for other organizations. Two other things here quickly. Here's a Slow Food. This is actually a refrigerator magnet. Snail.
Yeah.
So I don't know where I got this from, but those are available. And finally, if you are going to have swag, make sure it's useful. I mean, how many people have reusable grocery bags? Everybody's got to have at least a dozen of them in their house, their car, and so forth. But how many people have ones that are insulated? Okay, this one has got insulation in there. You can keep something cold in your car if you live out in the desert and things like that. And these are a little bit more expensive. You can get the regular grocery sack bags for under $1, but insulated ones, I get these from various trade shows, vendors, and so forth. These might be $2 or $3 a piece. It depends on what quantity you buy and so forth. So I found from Slow Food and from other organizations that if you have swag that is actually useful, that people use, refrigerator magnet, okay, fine. Chip clip, this actually has utility. And I would just recommend that if you're going to have stuff for your members, giveaways, you pay $5 or $10 to attend an event, you get one of these things. And then everybody at the grocery store is going to have a Slow Food bag that they put their ice cream in.
That's great. Yeah, no, people love merch. People love promo tools. I have long been allergic to them. I've just been too much stuff. I'm a very minimalist person. I'm I want one pen with a logo on it. But we all know it works, that people, pick up, a chip clip or a sticker or a tote bag, and they either throw it away when they get home or they have it for 20 years, just to remind them of what you're doing, make them remember, oh yeah, I should reach out to Slow Food CUP and see what they're doing. So yeah, thanks, Joe. Stephanie.
So Joe, your timing's perfect. Slow Food Vegas just recently purchased some Yeti cups. We used the Slow Food Vegas logo that Slow Food USA created for us, and customized the Yeti cups. And we did that because we want to use them as branding and marketing, but also a little bit of fundraising. It's not going to raise a lot of money, but because we'll sell them for a little bit more than cost, but not much. We picked Yeti because of the values the company embraces around equity and diversity and sustainability. And we're looking at t-shirts. We've done t-shirts once before for the board when we first started, and now we're looking at t-shirts to sell. But again, I've been doing research on trying to find t-shirts made out of sustainable material. Probably way too much research than I ever should have done on cotton versus tencel versus bamboo versus. So And now that I've done all this research, now I need to find a company that we can get some t-shirts for at a decent price. So if anybody knows any good sustainable t-shirt companies, let me know.
I'll put a link in the chat. One thing I wanted to say, and Brian or other people from National can chime in here. I'm with other organizations that have swag, and we don't sell those because then you have to get involved in collecting sales tax, which can be done, but it's just another thing you have to do administratively. So we would give these away in exchange for a donation. So if you do it that way, income as a donation. Hey, by the way, you can take a Yeti cup or a bag or a clip or whatever the case may be. That's one way to get around it. And I don't know, Brian, if you have any insight on that, but I've done that for 20 years with other organizations. A donation, and then you can have a pick an item and so forth, as opposed to selling, which means you have to collect sales tax and report to your state Department of Revenue.
Right. Yeah, we sell a very small amount of merch, so I should probably look into the sales tax thing because we don't think we collect sales tax. But yeah, I think the idea of like exchanging versus selling makes a lot of sense for us, especially when thinking about like equitable donations, right? Like you don't want to say for $50 you can get this t-shirt. Maybe it's like for a gift of $20 or more, and that allows people to kind of self-select and make donations based on what fits their budget and what fits their ability to give. So I just wanted to shout out Slow Food Lake Tahoe created an amazing clean canteen cup design that they printed last year that I just like thought was amazing. You all worked with like a designer, had your logo and also this like really inspiring type treatment. So yeah, it's okay to get creative and try something new, something that's like iconically your chapter, and then also tie it back to that like national, international brand of slow food. Yeah, and I shared in the chat, but Bonfire is a pretty, I think they have a pretty good reputation in terms of sourcing. If you create a Bonfire store for your chapter, you can upload some designs of merch and have it ready to be printed either in batches or on demand. You can set a certain amount to get like a cut of the sales of that merch as well. They have a pretty decent array of merch designs. This is something that's like on my list of things to do of like, we should build out our Bonfire store more because people love like the Slow Food logo, and we should have a bunch of other options in the store. So.
Brian, we are also in Lake Tahoe looking to move to Bonfire as well. We have purchased shirts in the past, and dealing with inventory when it comes to sizing is really difficult. So Bonfire just makes it a lot easier that you can order on demand and you're not having to worry about sizing and what's stored and what's available.
100%. Yep. Cool. Any other thoughts, insights, questions that are coming up for folks?
I wanted to mention one more thing that our chapter does in terms of marketing is we send out press releases to the local newspapers and magazines. And we also post in their online community calendars. And doing those two things either together or individually really helps them then take your content and publish it in multiple different places like their magazine, their newspaper, their Facebook page, their email newsletter. So it's kind of like a marketing assistant in a way that you can use that doesn't cost you anything.
I love that. We did not even scratch the surface of earned media in this session. And I think maybe that's something we can talk about in a future Creative Collective meeting. So I think some of you know we have this Slow Food Creative Collective, which is a group of folks that is connected through a Google group and a Slack channel and a quarterly meeting. Basically like you all, marketers and communicators in chapters to exchange resources and ideas. Our next meeting, and I'm gonna drop like a meeting item in the chat, is on April 11th at I think 6 p.m. Central, which is 7 p.m. Eastern. Is that right? Oh, Yes, it is. So it's just like a 90-minute session. We'll have a training. We'll have some time for chapters to exchange ideas. We'll hear some updates from Slow Food USA. And yeah, I'm kind of, I feel like maybe earned media and thinking about like LTEs, thinking about op-eds, thinking about engaging with reporters in your area. That might be a good topic for the next one, especially as your spring and summer events start to ramp up. And as we look to the Farm Bill and other, state and local legislation that we may want to comment on as a slow food movement. So yeah, click on that link, add the event to your calendar. And also I shared this, I think earlier, but join us on Slack. I do try to post resources as I come across them in the Slack channel. Those may not make it to other platforms. So if you are interested in like getting more resources about email marketing or earned media or storytelling, check out that Slack channel for the Creative Collective. So yeah, thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate the time and all of the ideas and insights, especially from our panel, but really everyone in the room who contributed. Many props to you all for doing this hard work of telling our slow food stories, of connecting with community through all of the different ways that you're doing it. Don't forget to fill out the survey that Dion shared in the chat. And yeah, Dion, you want to give us an update on our last session today?
Definitely. Patricia Hennessy is actually in the room, and she is leading the next and ultimate, since this is the penultimate session for the weekend, friend raising. So building relationships, also with an eye to raising funds for your chapters. So if you want to join us in about 30 minutes, we'll be discussing all of the good things, financial and interpersonal.
Woot. Very excited. Okay, well, in the meanwhile, go get a bite to eat. And thanks again for all your time and attention. And we'll see you in a half hour.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.